Thank you for joining us on the Winning and Selling Podcast. I'm Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
It's coming in the very near future. It's just around the corner. You can't run, and you can't hide. It will be upon you before you know it. That's right, the year 2024 is less than a month away. How will you prepare? Well, a good start would be to listen as Scott and I discuss Get Ready for 2024 and other forward-looking topics on episode 593 of the Winning at Selling podcast.
I was thinking a combination of the Jaws theme, dun, 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 dun. And then for some reason I was thinking of Tom Ridge after the 9/11 incident. We don't know where, we don't know when, but something bad is going to happen again.
Yeah. Well, you can guarantee when you've got crazy people out there, something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we're not crazy people. We're sane people, and we are doing our book club, finishing up. It's been selling. Yeah.
Neil Rackham's book, the chapter Turning Theory into Practice, and a bit of a paradigm shift going through this chapter, and a real awakening on some of there's 4 rules that kind of beginning of this chapter, and then the rest of the chapter is a summary of the steps, and they put them in an order of the sales process, which are not the same order as a chapter. So it was just kind of intriguing, the laying out the book. But rule number 1 is practice only one behavior at a time. And here's a quote out of the chapter, out of the book, is people who successfully learn complex skills do so by practicing one behavior at a time. And within the chapter, they tell a story about meeting somebody that was a football coach and training the team to just concentrate on one skill development at a time and get really good at it. And they were able to concentrate on being masters at that and then building on other skills that ended up making a great process. Bill, how did you interpret this advice?
Well, to bring up the football analogy, they always said that Vince Lombardi always went back to the basics at the beginning of each camp and said, let's remember what makes us good football players and not take for granted what we need to do. And I think that too often we think we're smarter than we are. And we take all of this information from a book like this and we say, I'm going to change everything that I do. And change is a difficult thing to accomplish because we're so drawn back to our old ways of doing things. So I like this advice. I think that too often we try to do too many things. And when we do training, one of the things that we try to do is chunk it down. It's called chunking it down. Chunk it down into behavior changes that we can make, that we can accomplish, that we can monitor, and that sales managers can monitor as well so that they can help their team make those changes.
I think that it's easier for a facilitator or a trainer to deliver a skill, a competency, for a student, a salesperson, an attendee to be able to get a concept of that competency, and easier for them to look for an opportunity to apply it. We're going to talk about applying it in another rule. And then it makes it a lot easier for the sales leadership to reinforce it too. And just breaking it down into those 4 steps, it becomes a lot more effective, I think. And at the same time, it can be efficient. So we always want to be concentrating on effectiveness over efficiency. And that's how I think we're going to be able to develop people's skills.
Well, and, when we're working with our customers, we're very hesitant to try something new. We always want to go back to what we do. And that's why we recommend practice. Don't practice the first time you do something on your best customer. We talked last week about trying something new. And I suggested try it on your small customers first, where you won't cause so much damage rather than trying it on. But I would even go back one step and practice it with other salespeople. If your sales manager is not doing that, you're not taking the time to learn something.
Right.
All right. What's rule number 2?
Rule number 2 is try a new behavior at least 3 times. And very great advice. I've thought of it. I've never seen it written before or anybody share it. But it's just so true. When you get a new skill, when you teach a new skill, you're going to look for an opportunity to apply it, and you're going to miss it because you're not sure what that opportunity looks like.
Right.
Then you recognize the opportunity, and then you found it, and then once you have the guts and courage to execute on the new skill, we apply it. So if we think about learning a skill, looking for opportunities and executing on it, we need to do that more than one time. So at least 3 times, because anything that we do for the first time we're going to be uncomfortable. We're going to feel like we're not very good at it. But everybody started at that place. I mean, learning how to play the piano, everybody started at the same place. Eventually, the more practice, you better you got.
Right. Well, I think the other part of that is that we tend to jettison things that don't work for us the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So we try this new behavior, we ask questions a different way or ask a different type of question, and it doesn't work because we haven't practiced it. But we don't blame our lack of practice. We blame the questioning. Oh, well, that type of question must not work with my client because when I tried, it didn't work, even though you didn't practice it and you didn't do anything to make it go better. You just blurted it out and maybe at the wrong time in the wrong way. Then it didn't work and you got frustrated by it. So you went back to your old ways again, that drawback to our old ways. So not only try it 3 times, but talk to your sales manager. I tried this. Here's what didn't work. Here's what did work. What should I do differently? Don't keep failing at it 3 times. Learn to do it better and then try it a second time. Learn to do it better and then try it a third time. But don't just keep doing it poorly and then blame the process rather than blaming your execution of the process.
That's that debriefing a sales call is so important because you get a chance to kind of get out of a stressful situation. You don't have an anxiousness. You're not on guard. You debrief the sales call. You think about what you did really, really well that you want to continue to do, new stuff that you learned that you applied maybe for the first or second time, and then things that just didn't give you the outcome that you want going, I think I could have done something different here and get a different outcome.
Right.
Now, you have to also think about the context of everything. And it's easy to take things out of context, but sometimes when debriefing with a sales manager, or if you're the sales manager debriefing with your salespeople, ask the question, how did we get here? What made you decide to ask that now? What is the path in the previous topics and conversations that you had? But how did we get here? That's adding context to a situation like this.
Oh, absolutely. And figuring it out is not always that easy. We need to take the time and kind of figure out how we're going to use these things and integrate them. So that practice 3 times is very key.
Yeah. Rule number 3 is quantity before quality. So this is right out of the book. Talking a lot is more important than talking well. Many convincing experiments have shown that this approach, which puts the emphasis on the quality of speech rather than the quality of speech. And you've got a great story about this, Bill, and I'm sure an audience would love to hear it.
Well, there was a pottery class, and the professor broke them into 2 different groups. And he said, in group A, you're going to be gauged on quality. You're going to do one work. You're going to spend the whole semester on doing this piece of pottery, and the better it is, the higher your grade. The other group, you're going to be graded on the amount of pots you can make. They don't have to be good. You just have to throw a lot of pots and get, just keep doing it. So you're going to kind of the amount of weight that you use will do your grade. Well, of course, the first group working on quality is working on measurements and designing and doing all these things to try and make this one good pot, and they never throw a lot of pots. But the other group, they just are working on quantity, so throwing a bunch of pots, getting better. And at the end of the year, the group that could make the better pot was the one that just threw a lot and focused on getting a lot of pottery done. The group that tried to work on quality never got it going. So I think we just have to do things rather than think about them so much and design and plan. I worked with some friends. We were trying to do a business together, and all they ever wanted to do was design brochures and create a website. And I finally said, go out and talk to some people and see if what we're talking about has any traction. Because if we're not talking to customers, we're not going to figure out what our website should look like. And so just go out and start doing something and see what happens.
Seems like so often we're getting ready to get ready. And it's like the topic of this chapter is theory. We get so caught up in theory. I think about salespeople, how much time they spend preparing for a cold call. Come on, 20 minutes, 30 minutes is too long to prepare for a cold call. You don't know if the person that you're going to call is even at the company anymore. You don't even know if the company is open anymore. There's so many things that you're going to learn along the way. But if you get into the rhythm of trying more calls and go for the quantity, the quality is going to follow. That's how I believe I cut my teeth when I was selling websites to attorneys on the East Coast.
I guarantee you, if you do 100 cold calls in one day, you'll be better at the end of the day than you were when you started. If you do 30 of them a day for a week, you'll be tremendously good at it. You've got to get over those first 20 that suck.
Right.
No matter how you do it, the first 20 are going to be lousy, and then you get better.
And then you start getting funnier too, because you get more improv.
Well, you start loosening up because you realize you got 80 more to make, and it's like it just doesn't matter. If you get hold of somebody, it's exciting, and you start to do something.
Right. Yeah. And prospects love salespeople that sound different. The more comfortable and the less stressful you can be, prospects are going to enjoy that. It's going to be a much better conversation.
Well, we're talking about practice, and rule number 4 then is
practice in safe situations.
Yeah.
I think too often we practice something new in front of a prospect, and that is the wrong time to try practice anything new. We need to try it, but go through that practice first in a safe situation first. And that's why I love role playing in a safe environment.
Yeah. I think this should be like rule number 1 or 2.
Yeah.
He's got it at the end. After you've tried it 3 times, now practice in a safe environment. It's like, wait a minute, I should have done that earlier.
Yeah, when I do 6-hour, full day workshops, I say to the group in the morning, I said, we're going to be doing 2 hours of role playing in the afternoon to keep you awake after lunch. They're like, oh, we hate role playing. And then we, I always interrupt a role play because I always want to maintain the dignity of the salespeople and
Oh, you're too nice. I don't want to maintain it.
I always protect them. I go, time out. Okay, let's back up here. Audience, class, did you hear this question, or did you hear the prospect say this? What did the salesperson do? And we break it all down. But that's a safe environment to do role playing. And then at the end of the day, I go, what'd you like most about today? Well, we really love the role playing.
Yeah,
really, guys, crack me up.
Yeah, it's the idea of role playing they don't like, but the actual activity people tend to if you handle them right and you don't, as you say, embarrass them or cut them down when they make a mistake. So yeah,
I always want to create an environment of learning when I'm doing a class, a workshop, and to be able to create that environment of learning makes everybody vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable, we're able to learn. It's okay to make mistakes in the conference room when we're doing a program. Out in the field, mistakes cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases.
Let's go back to our authors of Sales Jiu-Jitsu. Those guys, they made a habit of having 2 hours of practice every week as part of their sales meeting. And I would recommend for you sales managers that you quit spending time on metrics and start spending time on actually practicing new techniques that are going to make your people better. And that will be a better 2 hours spent than beating somebody up about what metrics they didn't hit that are on your Salesforce dashboard. So
those are the 4 rules, or the first part of the chapter. For those of you that are playing along at home, the rest of the chapter was on a summary. So that concludes Spin Selling. In 2 weeks, we're going to have our next book called Go Giver by Bob Burg and John David Mann. And we're going to start with chapters 1 and 2. So you got 2 weeks to prepare for chapters 1 and 2. If you haven't bought the book, there's probably enough time to get the book and still read those 2 chapters.
So it's in story form, should be easier for you to follow and enjoy, be quicker reading than reading something heavy like Spin Selling. But I think we're looking for an overall attitude change for ourselves. So excellent book. All right. Our main topic today is get ready for 2024. So it's kind of interesting, Scott. I'd picked this topic a number of weeks ago. And then, as I always do, I just was looking to see what other people had said about it. And our friend and guest, Anthony Iannarino, in his blog in mid-November, is called Getting Ready for 2024. So it's a difference of 4 letters. Get ready or getting ready. Exactly. So anyway, I figured I'm in good company if Anthony Iannarino is saying the same thing, because he's quite the expert. So let's talk about some steps on what we can do. Number 1 is to sit down, block out 2 to 3 hours, and really think about 2023. What went well? What didn't go well? What were you happy with? What do you regret? Just really think about the customers that you developed and when things went well, when things didn't go well. So just spend that time, but it's not a 5-minute process. It's some time where you have to really think deeply about it. Bring your records with you. Who did you talk to? What happened?
Yeah, I think it's important to debrief and think about, as you reflect back on the year, what are the things that you can control and what are the things that you cannot control.
Right.
I think coming out of COVID, we lost our routine. We lost the ability for us to control what we do and don't do. And just going out to eat was a challenge. I mean, we had to call and see if the restaurants were open, if they had staff, if they were able to, take on more customers. And that broke a routine. So there's some things that we cannot control. So going into the year 2024, think about the things that you can control that are important, your priorities.
Well, I think also you have to when we're still trying to recover from behavioral changes that COVID forced. I see a lot of salespeople that don't want to get out of their jammies in the morning. They don't want to get up and get going. They have this relaxed attitude. I'll, have my cup of coffee. I read the, couple of sports things. I watch a little bit of TV, watch some of the games last night. And all of a sudden it's 9:30. Well, I better get going. And then we, do a couple of things and then we get focused on something. The nice thing about a good habit, getting up in the morning at 6 o'clock, doing a couple things to get you started mentally in a good way in the day. I pray, maybe it's reading a good book, but getting yourself mentally focused, doing a little bit of exercise, getting yourself limbered up, taking a shower, getting some good clothes on. All those things say that I'm ready for the day. And if I decide not to do those things, then I just kind of never get myself going very well. So I would recommend make sure you have a good habit that starts you out in the day. And that may be one of the things that you look at and you say, I really lost this edge that I had. So I want to just do everything online, and people still like to be seen and know who you are. So, all right. Point number 2, establish what worked well. What worked well in 2023? Can you do more of it in 2024? Maybe it was a type of customer that you found you had some expertise with. Maybe it was a place where you went that you started to find more customers. Can you find more places like that? Can you find more customers like that? Maybe you had a good customer. Can you hone your perfect customer and learn more about them? Sometimes we forget who our perfect customer is and we start talking to everybody. So if you had a customer that really worked, maybe that's a customer type of business, a type of industry you want to focus on. Can you parlay any relationships you developed into more people? Did you have some customers that really liked you and you can start to use them as a referral source? So what went well in 2023 that can be repeated in 2024?
Great advice, Bill.
So now that we'll look at the other side of the coin, right? We looked at what worked well, and obviously we should look at what didn't work well. What were we disappointed in? What were we frustrated by? One of the things I know, I was talking to a client, and he said, well, one of his tasks is to look at the people who had looked at their website, and he didn't have really good information other than maybe the company that they were from. And he was spending time trying to find the right people to talk to and find the phone number for the company and make a call. And I said, so how much time are you spending on it? He said, well, I spend maybe an hour on that every day. I said, how many new customers? You've been doing it for a year, How many new customers have you gotten? He said, 0. Right? Bad return on investment.
Right.
And so I said, you need to talk to your boss and say, this isn't returning anything. Is there some way we can automate this? If we can't, maybe I'll continue to do it. But his return on investment, it was an hour every day of frustration he knew was not going to turn into anything. So be careful. Tying into that, are there some activities that drain you? There's some things you absolutely hate to do. Can you hire those out or delegate them to somebody else? Maybe there's somebody that likes to do that, right? So as Scott and I have worked together more, I don't mind putting the script together because I kind of need that to keep things going. Scott's better at putting things on the website and doing that background stuff. And so we found a way to work, because if I had to do the whole thing every week and then he did his share, he did the script one week and I did the script the next week to start it up, well, it might never get done. And I might never get the things online because I don't like to do it. So I keep putting it off. So find the things that you can do, and the things you hate to do, try and get rid of them to somebody else if they have to be done. Maybe they don't even have to be done.
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
doing
Great
things
advice.
just
So
a waste
true.
of time. Yeah. Yeah. Now, this is an area I think you're better at than me, Scott, but that is to be a futurist.
Mm.
What is happening in the future that can affect your business, right? And I thought
Right.
of things, AI is coming.
Mm-hmm.
AI is going to affect how we write. It's going to affect how we answer questions. Many companies are using AI to answer the phones. And
Mm-hmm.
there's many companies that are using AI to make outbound calls.
Right. Oof.
So that can be a big change in your company. Even if you're a small company, you may find AI to be even more beneficial to you if you're a small company, because you can use it to multiply your time.
Mm-hmm.
Our supply chain issue is going to happen again. So I'm hearing a lot that many companies are moving their supply chains from China to Vietnam and India
Mm.
and Indonesia and Singapore. And so they're moving it to countries around there because they were very frustrated by the Chinese response to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And they found they had too many of their eggs in one basket, and now I need to spread my supply chain around. Well, those changes might make for some supply chain issues, and they might create some new issues. So we better be ready for that. And a client that Scott and I worked with was still dealing with supply chain issues, not getting the stuff, but their customers had bought so much the year before to worry because they were worried about supply chain. Now they're not buying as much this year, so they need to find new customers. Is there going to be another pandemic? Right. I'm hearing about this pneumonia. I think it's called white lung or something like that. And some
Mm-hmm.
people have asked for less travel to China. So what are we going to do if we end up? Are you going to be able to handle the pandemic better? Will the government handle it differently? Do you have some legislation that you have to deal with? Legislatures like to make rules, and sometimes those rules can help your business. Sometimes those rules can hurt your business. So do you have somebody that's looking at the legislation? Maybe it's on how taxation is done, or maybe it's on, I did a lot of work for companies that did safety equipment. And every time the government would make a new change in their safety requirements, OSHA would make some changes. It changed everything in their business.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have your finger on the pulse of legislation that might come? And then the last one I thought of was social selling. Are you doing good jobs on social selling? It's a reality. It's here to stay. What are you going to do differently about that in 2024? Can you work on your social selling side? Can your company, are they doing some things that you can tie into? So those are the 5 thoughts that I had. Anything else that comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of the things that you're bringing up. I thought about the book, The Challenger Sale, when we did that, and one of the premises of the book was to not approach a prospect as a salesperson and say what's keeping you up at night, but rather asking telling the prospect, here's what should be keeping you up at night, and bringing these issues up, as Bill mentioned, to the prospect creates more of the future look, the outlook for a salesperson guiding a prospect, and then bringing the future to the present, where a prospect has to contemplate something and then make a decision now before they have an opportunity. That way they're prepared. But I really love the term market ambassador. And I've suggested that to some salespeople as you're out doing your milk routes and you're talking to the same people, is to be that market ambassador. Bring something that's relevant to your prospects every time you talk with them about something that they should be aware of, things that they should consider. You end up becoming knowledgeable. You become that thought leader. And then every time you talk to a prospect finds you informational, and you can present your products in a way that are informational, that your prospects think of you when it comes to your reputation. So be a market ambassador.
I call that being a resource.
Yeah.
I have a whole class called resource selling, and it's all about those people that have, you have 100 clients and you visit them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so many people go into those 100 clients and go, well, it's good to see you again. What do you need?
Touch base.
Yeah, I got my order book out, let's go to lunch, and they're not really bringing anything. And even if I like you, I might decide I can't spend a lot of time with you because you're not really bringing me anything new. Exactly. And the neat thing is, when you're going to be a resource, you don't have to find 100 articles for 100 different clients,
right?
Or 100 pieces of information. You find 1 or 2 and you bring that to all 100 of them. Mm-hmm. And then you find 1 or 2 more. And the next time you go around, you bring in new material for all those people. Yeah. And it can be as simple as a new product, product change. Hey, I wanted to show you this new product that we're doing. We've got a new company that we're repping. Let me show you what that is and see if that's going to help you. So be bringing something to those, as you say, be a market ambassador, be a resource for those customers, not just a guy with an order book.
Yeah, true.
All right, my last one is commit to growth in high potential areas. So as you're looking at what did work and what didn't work, some of those issues could be resolved if you got better, if you increase your capability. We need to think about how we're going to grow. So develop a personal growth plan for 2024. And that includes books you're going to read and podcasts. And we can be your resource for that. Follow along with the books that we're reading, listen to the podcasts, and listen to people like Anthony Iannarino and Mike Weinberg. Those are great podcasts. Our guests are great podcasters too. So do something different. Start to make your car again that rolling academy. And now it's so easy with podcasts to do that. You don't even need to buy the audios like we used to have to buy, Scott.
Right. Exactly. I remember Nightingale Cody. I'd be buying tapes, once a month. I'd be buying
$600. It was expensive.
Oh, I just wear those tapes out. I mean, I listened to some of them recently. I'm like, God, this is where I got it all, because sounds just like what I say.
Well, that stuff ingrains in your head, right?
Yeah, it does.
So find somebody to throw ideas off of. Practice. Encourage as we were talking about in the book segment, the book club, encourage your manager to start doing practice sessions so you can practice some of these new ideas with your peers. And then any other thoughts on that?
No, I think it's so true. I mean, you got to think about how are you going to change tomorrow, and how is tomorrow going to be different than yesterday? And it's basically the people that you meet, and the books that you read, and the podcasts that you listen to.
And the only thing you can really change is you.
That's true.
So what are you going to change about you? And we know you're dissatisfied somewhere with your performance. Make a commitment to not be dissatisfied another year with it. All right.
Yeah.
And then number 5 is develop some big objectives for next year. And I don't mean your monthly quota, your goal. I'm going to beat my goal by 10%. You deal with that every year. What I'm talking about is, what are 5 to 10 companies you're going to commit to finding a way to do business with this year? You drive past that company every day. Why aren't you doing business with them? So just pick out 5 or 10 companies. So you have a focus beyond this generic, I'm going to do more business, something that focuses you. When you have a target, you can get laser-like in it. One of the recommendations I make is to write those 10 businesses down on a piece of paper, put it in your wallet or in your purse. And every time somebody says, you meet somebody, you say, hey, here's 10 companies I want to do business with this year. Do you know anybody at any of these 10 companies? You'll be amazed how many referrals you get, even with people that you just hardly even know. How can I help you? I sit down with coffee with people all the time. And they go, how can I help you, Bill? Here's 10 companies I want to do business with this year. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I know people at 2 of these companies. Great. Can you introduce me? And that's a better way do you know somebody who needs my business? No. But I know somebody at one of these 10 companies. All right. The other thought is 5 to 10 people with whom you want to develop a better relationship. Influencers in the field. And Scott, I'm going to let you talk about this because you are a great relationship builder.
Thank you, Bill. I was at an event last night, and one of the leaders of the group, I went up and introduced myself to. I never really talked to them before, and had a very short conversation. We, talked about some people that we both know, and it was 15 minutes, and gave him my card and went back to the table that I was at. And they said, I saw you were talking to so-and-so. Do you know them well enough that you might be able to introduce me? I said, I'd be happy to introduce you. I don't know them very well, but I'd be happy to introduce them. So it's meeting those leaders and introducing yourself to them. And then looking at the people talking, you're talking to a leader, and then all of a sudden they think you are within that group. So your stock goes up because of the people that you're associated with or that you're talking with. And then the next time you get together with that group, then that person comes over to you and has a conversation because you had a chance to talk the last time you got together.
And you introduced them to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
So you built that network. It's just so important to continue to meet people. When you see a speaker, they love to have, you and I both spoke, and I love to have people come up and talk to me and afterwards and spend 2 or 3 minutes with me. Now, if there's a line of people that want to talk to that speaker, don't dominate their time, get their card, call them later. But I always welcome calls. I'm amazed when I offer to talk to people how few people call.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
How few people will reach out. So if you reach out to that person, chances are they haven't gotten 20 calls from that talk. They've gotten none.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's great advice. And those people that are willing to get up and speak, those are influencers.
Right. Yeah.
So
Great
here's the
points.
interesting thing about this, Scott.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is pretty good advice. I've heard this kind of advice before as we get ready for a new year.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a sad thing.
Hmm.
Most of you will hear it and only 2% will do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe even 2%. So let me challenge you. If you're one of the 2%ers, send us a note about the most interesting or revealing thought that came from your planning time.
Yeah.
Something that you didn't think of before that caught your eye. Now, I hope we'll get 4 or 5 calls out of the 10,000 people that listen to this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it would be great.
But if we get 1 or 2, I'll be pleased. But
Yeah.
I would love to have 10 or 15 people contact us and say, I sat down, I did a review. Here's what I thought. I sat down, I pretended to be a futurist. Here's what I think is coming that our company or I need to prepare for. I'd love to hear that.
Right. We could almost be accountability partners anonymously in a way of supporting people and calling them out, not by their real name, on how they're doing on that particular goal. And then Bill and I can create relevant information to support that goal. So the more that we know that's relevant to you, our listeners, we will include that in the show.
Connect with us on LinkedIn. It's a great way to do it. If you do that, please let us know that you listen.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of fake people trying to connect on LinkedIn. They're usually a beautiful Asian woman who is the president of the world,
Right.
but has no association and no information. So I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they want to get out of connecting with me. They always say, I want to have a personal relation. It's really weird stuff going on.
It is.
So if you've found out about us from the podcast, just go ahead on LinkedIn and just say, hey, well, I listen to your podcast and we'll be happy to connect with you. So, and have a picture. The other ones I don't want to connect with are people who don't bother to put a picture on their LinkedIn profile. So anyway, little teaching there.
Right.
Any other thoughts from you?
No, all relevant information. I think we need to be in control of our lives, and that means that we need to plan for our lives. And now's a great time to start planning for the future and take control of your life.
Most people are somewhere in the job they are in by accident.
Yeah.
So they didn't take control. All right, Scott, you want to go with our golden nugget for today?
Sure. Our golden nugget is a quote: all conversations are with myself, and sometimes they involve other people. And this is a quote by Susan Scott, who is going to be our guest next week. She wrote the book Fierce Conversations, and I'm halfway through the other book, Fierce Leadership. Cool. Really love her style. She talked about accountability as one of the leadership principles, and I said, we just got to get her on the show. So I reached out to her. I knew somebody that knew her and got her email, engaged with her online. She said she'd love to be on the podcast, and we're having her on next week. So going to be a great conversation. I've already picked out the topics that I wanted to talk about.
All right, great.
So relevant to sales.
So all this information will be in our show notes at winningatselling.com. Look for it there, and you can also plug into the podcast.
Again, a reminder, no book, but go out and get Go Giver. This is the red cover one. I think there's another one that's a green cover.
Go Giver sells more.
Okay, so we're doing the red cover.
We're doing the Go Giver, not the Go Giver sells more.
Go Giver. So go out and get the Go Giver book and start reading it. We'll cover chapter 1 and 2 in 2 weeks. Please subscribe and share this podcast with your colleagues and on your social media networks.
Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.